Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Boss versus Coach. It's been a while since we have interacted, the reason that keeping us busy is our book. So the book is shaping very well. I think it's almost done. We are in the final stage of reviewing the proof and finalizing few endorsements. So with all expectations, I am seeing the book coming to you by end of this month or early March. Uh, Anyways, so we are back here with a bang, and today's topic is gonna be very exciting because we have a very special guest with us tonight. Before I move to the topic, I would like to share a thought that a safe place is not where you avoid difficult conversations. It is where you do them with trust and respect. No prizes for guessing, but tonight we are going to speak about emotional safety. The organizations often thrive for performance, success, numbers, and profitability, but the truth remains that none of them can be achieved without ensuring an emotional safety with the people within the organization. Emotional safety stands out to be the foundation which helps people to take risk, bring ideas, and take initiative without having the fear of being judged. So tonight we are gonna deep dive into the concept of emotional safety. We'll see how emotional safety can turn out to be a game changer and why emotional safety is need of the hour. We'll also touch upon how the transformation that we are aiming from boss to coach can be done by having the element of emotional safety. So before I move on to my guest, I would like to have the initial remarks from Olivia. Olivia, what's your take on emotional safety?
Well, you know, I think there's an interesting thing in business. And in fact, someone said it to me just the other day. It's like, oh, but when you're professional and you don't show your emotions, then dot, dot, dot. Or, but when you're a coach, you kind of embrace emotions. And I think for too long we've had this separation, this belief that a professional person, that in a business context, we get rid of emotion, we just plow on and we're just, in our heads and being logical. Because we are whole creatures. We are our heads, our hearts, and our guts. And if we are ignoring the data, if you just want to be logical about it, ignoring that data of when you feel something in your body or when you notice an emotion, then you're missing so much. There's so much great writing about sort of thinking fast and thinking slow, thinking as a whole being, and the link between our mind and our brain and our biome, our guts, is really only just starting to be understood. And so I always get a little bit sad when people think that, well, to be professional, you don't show emotion, because then you're actually just saying to be professional, you don't be fully human. So I think there's something really beautiful about us being calmer about emotions happening, allowing them to happen, and then kind of noticing, well, what's going on for me there? So the more a leader can encourage people to have emotions, and I don't mean everyone running around screaming, crying. I mean, managed emotions, just noticing that they're there, maybe taking a few minutes to go away, breathe through an emotion and come back and go, okay, that made me feel this, and that language becoming more normalized. So that's my kind of dream about this, is that we stop pretending that emotions are for people at home. They're for people.
I could recall, when I was a kid and I used to watch the old time movies. There was this famous dialogue where the mother used to tell her son that you cannot cry because you're a man. You have to hide your emotions, otherwise you will be seen as weak. I think
Yes.
gone are those days. Showing emotion is not a sign of weakness. Showing emotion is sign of empathy and showing that you are human, showing that you really care, and showing that you are going beyond your head. Okay, so involving heart
Yeah.
is equally important thing when while at work as well.
Yeah. I mean, my concern is those days aren't gone. I think you still see it so much. Girls need to be pretty. boys need to be strong. I mean, that's ridiculous. No, it's lovely if we're all pretty. It doesn't matter if we're not. We can all be strong sometimes. We can all show weakness. But I think it's a really big cultural journey in society. It's not just in business. But if business could be a place where people could feel more able to show that weakness, to admit that they're not as strong as the world thinks that they should be, well, that would be a great start, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. So that's now the time is to invite our special guest tonight, and we have with us Vasudha Ahuja. Vasudha is a qualified lawyer. She started her journey with Khaitan and Company, but very soon realized that her passion lies in coaching. She is now practicing coaching as a full-time passion, not profession, and has been doing excellent stuff in ensuring the transformation of junior and mid-level managers, transforming them from managers to leaders, and so on. So welcome, Vasudha. Welcome to the show, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Mohit. Great to be here. It's great to also meet Olivia. I hope both of you are doing well. This is a topic that I hold very close to my heart, and it's sort of the central force of the work that I do. So I'm very happy to be here and be part of this conversation with you.
So are we. So Vasudha, before we begin, I would like you to give a small introduction about what you are doing, about Happy Turtling, and also how are you bringing this spirit of coaching in people's life. Over to you.
Definitely. So yes, thank you so much for your introduction. I am essentially a corporate lawyer by background, but a few years into my career, which was a fast-paced, high-achieving career that I had, I started feeling very existential and realized that I was not aligned to the path that I was meant to follow. And I decided to move on into entrepreneurship and coaching. And that's where I feel that my growth and my value add both come the most, right? I wanted to help support junior to mid-level professionals, or call them young leaders, because we have a lot of millennials and even Gen Z moving into entrepreneurship early on in their careers and their professional lives, right? But in doing so, there is a lot of confusion, lack of clarity, that comes in, self-doubt, and that may cloud one's ability to, say, take action or basically make the right choice. So that's how I sort of do my bit as a coach to support such people. I am an ICF ACC credentialed coach, and I'm also an advanced practitioner of EFT, emotional freedom techniques. So as you asked me about Happy Turtling, right? So I bring this unique concept of turtling to essentially revolutionize the relationship you have with your career or your work, right? So that ranges from making decisions or choices in terms of choosing your career path, or transitioning out of, say, an industry to another, or transitioning within your current role or organization. So that does sort of include promotions and, moving, say, from an individual contributor role to a leadership role and so on, right? Essentially, I do this by helping you find emotional safety within yourself, right? And build it into your life as a whole. And that's how you bring it into your work as well, right? So there are three main pillars for this. There's self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-resourcefulness, right? Which are the essential ingredients, I believe, for making conscious choices and living in alignment with your calling, right? So by calling, it's not necessarily your passion, but what you are called to do in the moment, in this phase in your life, at this point at work, right? So in all this is where turtling comes in, because if you look at turtles as a sort of the central metaphor of all of this, when you need to sort of make a decision, or when your surroundings become difficult, like a turtle, you look within. You gather your resources within, and based on your resources, you take steps outside, depending on what the climate outside is, essentially. So one of my core tools for doing this is EFT tapping, which I use to facilitate rapid mindset shifts and emotional healing. So I hope that gives you an idea, into my sort of attempt at being creative and bringing compassion into the professional world.
An exciting concept. In fact, when I first read it on your LinkedIn profile about happy turtling, I was very excited to know what is this all about. It's really exciting. So Vasudha, moving on to the topic of the day, and we are talking emotional safety, which is very close to you. You just said. What do you understand out of emotional safety, and how do you see it being a game changer in today's workplace?
Yeah. So for me, essentially, emotional safety means you can bring your whole self, right? And I loved how you opened by saying being able to have difficult conversations. Essentially, emotional safety to me is a young or a team member being able to share with others, their peers or their seniors, saying, I'm stuck, I don't know what I'm doing. And most importantly, perhaps I made a mistake, or I'm afraid. These things, in my experience so far, are not very welcome in the workspace, or there is hesitation. There's a lot of tension around this. Oh, there's a mistake. It puts everyone into a survival mode. Rather, you're in a survival mode because you feel it's not safe to make a mistake. It's not safe to say, I don't know. It's not safe to say, I need help. And that's how I see, if you're able to share this with the people you're working with, or anybody you're interacting with for that matter, that's emotional safety. To feel like you're seen as yourself and you're allowed to be your whole vulnerable self. Whether you're an individual contributor, whether you are in a managerial or a leadership position.
A very nice thought. Emotional safety is all about feeling your oneself. Olivia, let's flip the lens. What hidden cost does companies pay when emotional safety is missing?
That's a really good question, actually. And I think it is important, talking to leaders. It's not all just about everyone feeling good. You want them to feel good because you want your company to do well, and your biggest asset is your people. And so if you think about some of the things that Vasudha was just saying then, there is no innovation when you can't get things wrong. If you have to get everything right, you never take a risk. If there is a right way and a wrong way, and that's been dictated, you choose the one way. So how does the organisation learn? How does innovation happen? And how does the individual develop if they're not being encouraged to try things out, to look at things in a new way? There's a beautiful phrase about the beginner's perspective. If you actually are someone who's done something year in, year out for 30 years, it's hard to remember how to question it because so much of it's ingrained. And when you have someone come up to you a few months in, a few years in, and look at what you're doing, you go, oh, that's interesting. How do you do it that way? It's very easy as a leader to say, it's the right way, it's how we do it, don't worry yourself, just go off and do it. But what if that person was bringing you something that you hadn't seen? And increasingly, the use of technology, of AI to cut down on work, mechanising, digitising. It could be that after 30 years in a job, I can't recognise that there's a piece of technology that I haven't seen yet that could change everything about how I think about it. So it's that understanding that without experimentation, without, that phrase which I think it was Facebook brought out a long time ago, is failing fast. Let's make mistakes, but let's make them quickly. Recognise the learning, not the mistake. Recognise the learning from that trip up and develop on from it. So, I think for any commercial business, if you stamp down on people being able to say, I got it wrong, or I don't understand, or I've got a different point of view, you're stamping on the opportunity for competitive advantage. Simple as that, in my view.
I agree, very strong point, Olivia. Vasudha, I often hear leaders saying that they are doing an excellent job on emotional safety. I often hear organizations claiming that they are ranking high in terms of happiness index. But when you deep dive into those organizations, you find a lot of fear, lack of excitement, and absolute absence of psychological and emotional safety. So, what, according to you, are the factors that lead to failed assessment of organizations and leaders in judging the right pulse of their employees or in claiming that they are emotionally safe ecosystem?
That's really a wonderful question, actually, Mohit. When you said happiness index, I couldn't help but smirk a little bit because a happiness index, I think a lot of the metrics for coming up with this are freebies or like, some gifts at festivals or like birthday cake cutting and maybe an offsite or, retreats and things. But what's really happening, right? Are they helping your team members connect? Are you being able to have an equation with your boss or your leader in a way where you can share your whole self? They can share their whole self with you, right? So essentially, if your team members, if say you're in a group setting, right? Nowadays, even in these retreats, there are team building activities or some kind of professional development interaction, right? If in those settings, you are still feeling like if I share this part of myself, I'm going to be judged, or I can't still, even in these settings, I still can't share most of myself because if they see the whole of me, it's not safe. It's not okay. They're going to perceive me differently. The relationship will change. It could affect my remuneration. It could affect my promotion, that kind of thing. That's a sign you want to look out for, whether maybe they've gotten, that assessment wrong, perhaps, and maybe they're not on the right track. Another sign actually is if they feel like, if somebody in the team feels like if they've made a mistake, they need to cover it up. They need to hide it from the leaders in the team. That's a sign that perhaps, despite whatever the assessment is, they're actually not as happy or as emotionally safe. Of course, happiness index may be very high, but if you may not have a lot of people leaving. Of course, a lot of people leaving is a sign, but the way somebody decides to exit an organization, what are the reasons they give you? How do they do it? A lot of times, when we have these exit interviews, I feel personally there's calling it an exit interview is problematic in itself, right? But if you feel hesitant to have something on the record because it will affect, they always ask you, okay, you have a conversation with HR and the individual is like, should this be on the record? Should it not? Would you like us to consider you if you want to come back to the organization, right? It's always that sort of slippery slope. Like, do I tell the truth even while I'm going? Like, could I be penalized while I'm going? In such a small world, how will this, sort of affect me? You're constantly sort of looking over your shoulder. So these are some of the signs that, you may want to also check in. How freely does somebody, speak when they're exiting, and what are the reasons they give you? Is quiet quitting still happening?
I agree. Olivia, that brings me to the thought that, while we are discussing the importance of emotional safety, we are weighing emotional safety as a game changer. But there can be an argument from the leaders or the bosses that, they are getting everything they are planning for. They are doing excellent. They are meeting their targets. They are having the right retentions. So what more is required to have emotional safety? They may feel that us getting the work done, paying good to our staff, and then making sure that they are working with us, even though in a disgraceful manner or in a situation which is not very respectful, is all what is required, and they don't need to do anything extra to ensure these new age terminologies of emotional safety. What's your advice to those?
I guess it depends what you think success is. If year on year you're managing to go up another few percent and therefore you're hitting your targets and you're as rich as you need to be as a boss, well done. But when exponential change is wanted, you need radically different approaches and strategies and behaviors. So, if someone thinks, well, I can just keep, thrashing my staff and telling them exactly what to do, and I'll keep year on year getting an incremental increase in my pay, and that works for you, well, that's great. I mean, I would argue there will be a point at which people won't want to work with you because there will be enough places where they have a better environment, a better existence. And I would say to those people who are sitting there thinking, I'm fine, it's like, well, the most successful companies in the world aren't making small incremental changes. They're making fundamental changes to the way they choose to be. And on the back of that, they are seeing exponential change in terms of their top and bottom line. So it's a choice. Again, I'm always about the commercial. It's if it's your business, what's the business that you want to have? A good enough one? Or a great one? And a great one has to be great in every dimension, including how it looks after our people. And it was quite interesting. As I was listening to Vasudha talking about her perspective there, the word that just kept hitting into the back of my head was trust. And if someone's getting the happiest happy index score in the world, and the people aren't actually happy, it's probably because someone's standing over them telling which button to press. So I think that if you don't trust your organisation, you probably don't trust that it's anonymous, and you probably don't trust that if you don't say you're happy, you'll be out. So, there's a whole kettle of fish there about how people are assessed in these surveys and things.
Absolutely agree. And I think it's high time that organizations and especially leaders must realize that they need not have to jump for becoming a great place, but they need to work towards becoming a better place. Yeah, Vasudha.
So I just wanted to sort of add something because Olivia sort of led me to, get a certain perspective. It is, we're not in that day and age anymore where you need a job or you need people to fill a vacancy, right? We want good places to work at, right? We want competent people who are invested in the work that they're doing, right? And you're not going to find that if you are treated like just a cog in the wheel, like you're just supposed to do this. You should be grateful that you have a job. Actually, no, there are lots of jobs out there now. I think the world is, yes, I mean, there are layoffs and things, but personally, I have a different view on why they happen and how they happen. It's not about you being able to find a job. There are lots of jobs and lots of different kinds of jobs and roles. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think it's also important to understand how the world has changed over the course of the last 30 to 40 years, and whether the way organizations are run and the way businesses were sort of also run before, whether it's relevant, whether those systems are still relevant now. Instead of, I'm going to bring a generational perspective here, right? And research backs the fact that the boomer generation or the Gen X generation haven't had enough space for their emotions, and therefore they feel what is the necessity to focus so much on emotional safety or happiness or looking after the emotions of the newer members of the workforce. But that's because in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're a little higher up in the pyramid thanks to the previous generations. And that's why when you seek fulfillment, you naturally have to seek safety. So again, there's another way to look at it, that instead of sort of physical safety being, the baseline, emotional safety now becomes the baseline. So that then becomes a fundamental need for you to fulfill first, before you can be innovative, before you can, in order to be able to perform your best, in order to be able to have full focus on the work that you're doing and buy into the vision of your leaders, right? You can't do that if these aspects are not taken care of.
No, absolutely, very true. So let's build up some more excitement on this show, and I'm gonna hit some rapid fire on you. So be ready and gear up. So quick ones for both of you. Emotional safety in one word, Vasudha.
Vulnerability.
Olivia.
Sort of, yeah, okay.
I was thinking vulnerability too, so I'm gonna swerve and give you a new word, which would be trust.
Okay. If you are given one superpower to bring emotional safety in an organization, what that power will be and how will you use it? Vasudha.
EFT tapping. Help your leaders heal emotionally and shift their mindset so they don't bring their wounds, and they can show up with vulnerability. So that's what EFT, or the way I do EFT, helps. And I've already started doing it, so I'm very excited about it.
Olivia.
I would say, oh, hello. Sorry, my daughter is now calling me. Live TV. I would say, if it's a superpower, I'm allowed to have a magic mirror. So I would like a magic mirror where people can actually see the impact that they have through their behavior on others. There you go.
What if emotional safety was a physical object? How would you make it look like? Vasudha?
Off the top of my head, I'm imagining a very soft cushion that I could hug. Yeah.
Olivia? It's rapid fire. Quick.
Yeah, I know. You keep saying that, but this is, like I said, this is the problem with it being live and being interesting and hard. I went for a hot water bottle. I don't know how that translates culturally, but yeah, something cozy that just makes your tummy feel nice and warm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one advice, Vasudha, you would like to give to the leaders outside on how they can check on the emotional safety with their teams.
Okay, very interesting. Is your team able to come and tell you that they've made a mistake? Is your team able to come and tell you, listen, we discussed this, we planned this, but it's not working out that way. We actually are not agreeing or aligning with what, we discussed in our huddle, for instance, or we don't know why we have to do this. It's not making sense to us. If they can come and say that, if they can speak to their leaders directly and say, I don't like this. And their leaders are okay hearing it and they don't feel threatened, their ego doesn't kick in. If they have people who can say that to them, and they're able to hold space to understand perhaps where the person is coming from, you're on the right track. Another check to see if you are creating an emotionally safe environment is whether you as a leader feel emotionally safe telling your team you don't know, you made a mistake, you are not sure, and you need their support to help all of you move in the direction that you want to together. So if you can do that as a leader, your team knows that you're human, and that's how your team can come to you and say the same to you, and that's how you sort of get stronger and more productive.
Olivia.
The rapid fire thing's going rapidly wrong. Your second point was my first point. I think if a leader can admit that they have vulnerability, that spreads through the team, as long as they do it with emotional intelligence, which is a whole other area.
Great. So thank you. And I think it was a very exciting conversation. I think we have overrun the time, but I am enjoying it, and I'm sure the viewers will enjoy it to the fullest as well. This is a topic which is worth discussing. This is a topic which everyone should discuss in their groups, in their organization, in their teams, because It's high time that we start realizing that we are working with humans and there is a need beyond task. I think, and if I have to conclude, I would say the biggest gift leaders can give to their teams is the freedom to take risk, freedom to fail, freedom to learn, and freedom to grow without having the fear of being judged. And I think that's how the happiness will increase, and then there is no need for any index to measure it. On that note, thank you very much, Vasudha. Thank you, Olivia, for coming and taking your time on the show and sharing such excitement with all and then. And I would like to request our viewers to keep watching Boss versus Coach. Do look out for the book. It's coming very soon. And do let us know how did you like that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Vasudha. Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
both.
much.
Bye.